Welcome back. This is the third and final episode in why Transperth made such a step up of a level crossing closure in North Fremantle back in November 2025. And if you like, you can go and look at the first two parts, which are going to be a lot shorter than this one. So, what happened in the last weekend in November 2025? Why was it such a mess for cyclists and pedestrians? I'm going to run through some thoughts on how and why it was badly planned and executed. And this is just my thoughts. I don't actually have any facts here. How I think it could be improved, and I just want to make clear that this is not professional advice. This is just someone that rides a lot and has ridden and driven through an awful lot of detours, and I've been observant and I've read the Austroads Guides and I've kept my eyes open, and I've just picked up a lot of things along the way on what works and what doesn't. And then we're going to have a look at lessons learned for future projects, which is really important for project managers. Now, what happened? Well, Transperth, or their contractors, John Holland, needed to do some track work next to North Fremantle Station on the 29th and 30th of November, which is, fine. Maintenance work has to be done. And in order to safely do that, they had to close the pedestrian level crossing at the southern end of the station. Okay, again, that's fine. If you need to close a bit of infrastructure to do maintenance work or upgrades, it has to be done. But what you need to do is you need to put in proper detours for the users of that infrastructure whilst that maintenance work is underway. You can't just close the flippin' thing and say, yeah, that'll do. Now, what I want to make very clear here is everything I'm talking about is not aimed at the mammals. The middle-aged men in Lycra who are quite comfortable riding on the road at speed in packs, and they're not terribly bothered by traffic and vehicles and all that kind of thing. What we're talking about here is, mums and dads, kids, the elderly, and not necessarily even people on bicycles. These might be people using, mobility scooters and things like that, or even electric wheelchairs. They need to be given a safe and convenient detour around your work site. So, what were the main problems? Well, the first thing, there was absolutely no advance warning of the closure in the weeks prior to the shutdown. You'd think with a shutting down a major piece of infrastructure like this, people would have been notified at least a month in advance with signage around the place. Now, apart from some path closed signs at the pedestrian crossing itself, there was no directional signage whatsoever along either of the detours. And there were two alternative detours you could use. I tested both of them, zero signage. When was the last time you drove through some maintenance works and there was no detour signage whatsoever telling you where to go to actually get around it? Answer is probably never. It's the kind of thing that might happen in an emergency, say after a landslip or a bushfire or a car crash, where they just have to throw out signage really quickly to get you around the incident, and you then have to find your way around the back roads and stuff until they get some signage out. But in something that's planned work, something that's probably been in planning for months, if not the entire year, you would expect things to be much more comprehensive than they were. There was no detour ahead warning signs on the weekend, which was required because as you're riding down the PSP towards Fremantle, you had a choice about which detour you could take. So you'd expect there to be a detour ahead sign, and more importantly, a map showing the routes, and you can say you can go Route A or Route B, depending on your comfort levels with riding on the road versus riding on the footpath, etc. And anyway, the sum of all of this was a very, very poor detour for kids, and the elderly. The footpath that you could use as one option it's in very poor condition. It's narrow. The crossings across Stirling Hwy are one of them in particular is terrible. It's a busy road. Even the footpath, it's made out of concrete slabs. Those slabs have got gaps in them. If you've got a narrow tyre, you could ride into those gaps and have it caught. The other way, which you could have used, it's a very busy truck route with lots of semi-trailers pulling containers in and out of the port. Very unpleasant place to ride on the road unless you're an experienced cyclist. So they really, the choice of routes really was bad or very bad. And look, there are no solutions, there's only trade-offs, but what you need to do is make those options less bad. Now, one thing to note is Transperth is actually very good at advertising service disruptions to its own customers. So if you stop and have a look at the signage outside any train station across the network, there'll be a billboard, and they stick up these vinyl posters on a regular basis advising of closures. Similarly, I was out at Bassendean recently, and they're doing some work in the car park there, and they've got a plethora of signage all around the car park advising of the disruptions to patrons, people that use the car park. And some of those signs have even got maps on them showing the impacted areas. So, it shows that Transperth, when it wants to, can do good, clear communications, but in this case, they just didn't bother. Or maybe they didn't instruct their contractor that they needed to do this kind of stuff. This is an example of advanced notice signage put up by the WA Marathon Club. They do put these things up regularly around the principal shared path network, and this was taken probably in March, and you can see though it's telling us that on Sunday the 6th of April there was going to be a running event on the path, and it's not saying the path is closed, it's going to be very busy and you might want to go somewhere else, or if you are down here, just be patient and be ready for it. This is an example of the kind of very simple signage that should have been used along the detours, and maps that would have been useful. So how could this debacle have been avoided? First thing, well, they could have just had a chat with Westcycle in advance about the planned detour, or the closure, and Westcycle could have had a look at it and said, yeah, look, we've had a look at your map, we've gone and ridden the route, we think you could make some improvements here. I actually put in some signage. A really basic thing you can do is you can look at Strava heat maps. Now, Strava only covers 5 to 10% of the cycling population, but it tends to be skewed towards the mammals, the fitness end of the cycling market, rather than the mums and dads. But it does give you very good route information or traffic pattern information that you can use. The other really important thing is just go and ride the route beforehand. And in particular, take the traffic management contractor along. And when I say ride, I mean, get on bicycles and ride it. Do a pertinent inspection of the detours you're planning on taking. It took me about 5 minutes to ride one of the detours in one direction, and it probably would have taken less than 10 to do the other one. So all up, an advanced inspection, you're probably looking at an hour tops. Communications management. There should have been signage to provide advance warning of the closure about a month out. Not only signage on site in a couple of locations, but providing those maps and that information to main roads, so they could have put it on their traffic map site in advance. Westcycle could have put it on their detours page. They could have put it out on Facebook. They could email it out to all their members to let them know there was something going on. Communications with this kind of stuff is key. And a really important thing, you've got to signpost the entire detour route, or routes in this case. The lack of signage was really quite disturbing and very unprofessional in my opinion. And maps would have helped a lot in this case, because there were alternatives you could use. If you're looking at the maps, you could have said, do we want to use that route or that route? Which one works better for us? And you can allow people to make up their own minds. Now, here's an example of a Strava heat map. And the brighter the colour, the more bike traffic there is on a particular route. And you can see here that there's a lot of mammal traffic, which it comes down West Coast Highway, loops around towards the beach, and then comes in on Tideman Road, and then goes across the Fremantle traffic bridge. But if you zoom in, you can see there's kind of the mums and dads traffic, which gets off at North Fremantle Station, uses the level crossing, and goes down, Jewel Parade and that to get down to Tideman Road. Let's spend 5 minutes riding the route and have a look at what we could have done along the way. So what you can see in front of you is the pedestrian overbridge at Leighton Beach. And back here somewhere, it'd be useful to have a detour ahead sign and possibly a map showing the alternative routes you could take. And this is also where in advance it would have been good to put up a billboard like this with a map on it saying, 29th, 30th of November, the level crossing is going to be closed. Here's the routes you can take, and put that in at the start of November so people have got plenty of notice it's going to happen. And their planning might involve, we're just not going to ride down to Fremantle on that particular weekend. We're going to go up to Hillary's, we're going to go up to the hills or whatever. Or the mums and dads who are taking their kids out for an ice cream at Leighton might have said, we're not going to go there today, we're going to find somewhere else to go. All right, now as we go under the overbridge, obviously you have to turn right here to get onto it. What do you need? A right turn arrow with a pedestrian and cyclist symbol on it. Then as we go around the corner here, there's a branch in the path, and there's an option to actually cross the road here and ride along the path along the beach. We don't want people to do that. We want them to go straight ahead, so you need another sign there. And this is where a map would also be useful for people who are coming off the beach, to tell them if you want to walk down to Freo, etc., you need to get up here on the overbridge and cross over and go down to Stirling Highway. Right, we've made it across the bridge. What do we need at the other side? Turn right. And this is an interesting case, because the short way is actually to turn right, and that's the natural thing most people are going to do. Off to the left, there's actually a set of traffic lights. And someone doing route planning might have said, you know what, it's actually going to be a lot safer if we send people down to the left, get them to cross at the traffic lights, and then come back up the other side. It's going to add another couple of 100 metres to the detour, but it's probably a better option than doing this. Anyway, if we do send them to the right, when we get to this crossing here at Stirling Highway, we want them to go across here. And the first thing anyone doing a pertinent audit would have noticed is just how narrow that gap is in the island there, and how you can't stop in the middle of the road on a bike. So we get across, we want another right turn sign here. And if they'd bothered to ride this, they would have found there's lots of issues with this path. There's a bus stop, for instance, with signage in the middle of the path. If there's two-way traffic, which you'd expect there to be if it's being used as a detour route, someone's going to have to get off the path to let people go the other way. There's lots of obstructions like poles, etc., in the path or off to the side of the path. Here it gets particularly narrow, and if you ride off into the grass, you might end up riding onto Stirling Highway with vehicles coming up behind you. Pedestrians, you can just see, there's just absolutely no space here. Path is pretty rough and rocky. And then at each intersection, what you want is a go straight ahead arrow to let people know, no, keep going, the detour hasn't finished yet, you need to keep on going in this direction. Now, you might be saying, why am I on this side of the road? Well, the simple answer is because there's no path whatsoever on the other side of the road. There's a fence that comes up almost to the road, and it's just waste ground with kind of rubble and rocks and stuff. No one's going to be walking or riding over that. So you just need to keep telling people, keep on going straight ahead. Might have also been an idea in the side streets to have signs telling drivers to expect to see pedestrians and cyclists crossing at these streets during the weekend, just so they don't come barreling out of a side street and hit someone going past. Also, for drivers turning off Stirling Highway into these side streets, even some signage there might have been useful to remind them that they need to give way to people if they're turning into a side street. So, we keep on going along here. Again, you want keep on going straight ahead, because this is quite a long detour. And if people don't know the area, they might be wondering, well, am I actually going in the right direction? There's no maps or anything. You need to give people confidence that they're going in the right way, and just keep on putting up the signage. And you want each sign to be visible from the last sign. So when you get to one sign telling you to go straight ahead, you should be able to see the next one. And if that means you need to put in intermediary signs to show people the way, like breadcrumbs or whatever, then that's what you do. Okay, we have a right turn here at the traffic lights. And then when we get across the lights, obviously we want a left-hand sign. And I'm doing this in the assumption that, you've got tourists from, Austria. It's their first day in Perth. They've gone and rented some bikes. They've come down here. They've got no idea where they're going. That's the kind of mindset you need. You need to totally explicitly tell them every step of the way where they're supposed to be going. And here we are at the end, and this is where you could have an end detour sign, and people know that they're back on the route. So that's the kind of stuff that would be really useful for the mums and dads and that kind of thing. So just to recap on all of that, talk to Westcycle about these planned closures. Make sure you're also talking to Main Roads about this stuff. And I really wonder whether the people in Main Roads who review the traffic management plans were actually given the traffic management plan for this closure and asked to review it and approve it. Because if they did, I think they need to be talked to, because as you can see, you know, the signage and all the rest of it was completely inadequate. I get the feeling Transperth or the contractors never actually went to main roads to tell them about it, because they probably thought, oh, you know, a pedestrian level crossing, it's not a road, we don't have to talk to them about it, we don't have to, you know, allow them to give advance notice on their site. Forgetting it's a major crossing in the principal shared path network. So, you know, Main Roads owns the PSP network, so you'd think they should have some say when you know, a bit of infrastructure at the end of a PSP has been closed off. Just ride the route beforehand in each direction, and do it with the traffic management contractor. And you know, you have to get on a bike and ride it. And if you come back saying, boy, that was really dangerous, or we can't risk our staff riding that because it's too dangerous, it's like, well, if it's too dangerous for your staff to get on a bike and ride that, why are you putting cyclists on that route without any protection, without any signage, without any maps, and without any warning? You know, that's completely abrogating your duty of care to the users of the path. Communications management, you know, these companies usually, or departments usually, have big communications teams. We've already seen that Transperth know how to do, you know, communications of closures. You know, just repeat what you've already been doing. Put up the sign to provide advance warning a month out. You know, signpost the entire detour route. I mean, that's the responsibility of the traffic management contractor, but whoever engaged them should have given them a scope of work, which would say, you know, we want you to signpost the detour routes from end to end. We want you to produce maps. We want you to put those maps up in, you know, strategic locations. We want you to put out the advance signage a month in advance. That's all part of your scope of work. And of course, it's probably going to come back with another 0 on the quote. But you know, that's the kind of thing you need to do for to make a detour, you know, safe and convenient for everybody. Right. Hopefully, there's a whole bunch of lessons learned there. Be nice if John Holland and Transperth or the PTA are doing work down there in future, they don't repeat this absolute mess. There's a whole bunch of lessons in there, and hopefully someone's going to learn them, and I don't have to do one of these videos yet again. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.